Welcome to Marketing. Grab some coffee and let's talk about what's working in marketing, who these strategies are designed for, and how to be customer centric while we do it. Hey there, this is Leanne with Marketing. Today I'm joined with Kerry Gard. She is the CEO of MKG Marketing. Marketing, everything's not marketing.
Maybe
All
it should
right,
be.
maybe it should be Marketing World Takeover. All right, Carrie, tell us more about what it is you do and give us some background on you so we have some context going into our conversation about marketing.
Yeah. So I started MKG Marketing back in 2011 with my business partner, Mike Krass. We started in Washington State for a hot second before we moved to San Francisco, where our very first client was Box.com. Set the stage for helping SaaS and complex brands get found via digital ads and SEO. And so we stay true to who we are, and that's what we do to this day, working with even more complexity in the cybersecurity and data management platforms. A very interesting audience where they are very cynical and distrusting. And it's our job to help them understand and build the trust between the brand and to do it in a way that's authentic and thoughtful and not salesy or sleazy. And it's a fun world to live in now. And I'm here for it. That's what we do.
Awesome. And I love it because want, I'm an industry agnostic marketer. And what I want is for everybody to pick and choose from different industries and blend it into this thing that is holistic, that is innovative, that is customer centric. And a core component to that is being transparent. Is what you see is what you get. We aren't trying to fool you. Here is the credibility. And I feel like that sort of content, that sort of mindset is what these complex companies really are after.
They are in the art. What they're really after is making the decision on their own terms. Right. So it's switching gears from jamming sales and marketing down their throats to being a thoughtful partner of like, you're ultimately going to make the best decision that's right for you and your company. We don't know what your tech stack is. We don't know what you're up against in terms of the complexity that your specific business has. We just know that in the relative problems of this thing, this is how we best solve them. And that's either right for you or it isn't. And it's up to you to be able to make that decision. And we're just here to support you in giving you everything you possibly need to be ready to make that decision because it's an expensive decision that is going to make or break whether you're secure or your data is filtered the right way or whatever the case may be. And so it's a shift of this idea of lead generation, of just being able to shove our message down throats of people until they convert, going after a very large set. It's all a numbers game, right? It used to be just a complete numbers game of A/B testing to the right message to the right people until we whittle it down to the exact right buyer that's then pulling the trigger. And those days are gone. The buyer sets are smaller, it's by committee, the sales cycles are way longer. And what they're researching today, there's going to be a lull tomorrow for like 6 months before they pop up again and they have a short list and they're ready to go. And it's like, we have to change the way we market and not change. It's interesting because I feel like it comes back to building brand and it's something we got away from for a long time. And now we have to come back to it. But we don't remember how to do it because it doesn't have immediate gratification. And so we're like, well, it's not working. Don't panic. Stay calm and look at those leading indicators, measure down funnel, and then optimize on a longer vision versus month to month, quarter to quarter. It's just a different mindset.
Yeah, I think zooming out can be one of the most powerful things that a company can do, and not to try to make decisions on what happened at 12:50 versus 12:51. You just got to give stuff time to cook. And um one phrase that's just been really really etched in my mind lately is go slow to go fast.
Yes.
And I think that with brand especially, this is the foundational pivot that we need to make, because before, when you could just throw, not that you ever should have, but when you could just throw money into problems and be like, "Oh, we need more ads, more money. Like let's get another vendor. Let's do another this. Let's do a bigger campaign. I know we should do something big and flashy." Those things cost money. They always have. And they don't always work. So, slowing down to build a foundation is what will make those things more optimized, like more effective, just better.
It's hard to stay the course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's there's a shortage of staying the course.
Don't panic. Yeah. Trust your gut. I mean, as marketers, we've been around the block, right? We've seen it all at this point, especially for us who've been in the industry for like 15 plus years. We've seen the ebb and flow. It's coming back to brand. We rode the lead gen wave for as long as it lasted, which, to be honest, is not as long as we think it was. And we've got to take that page out of the B2C book, got to build the brand.
And and that's part of
And
it
it's,
is that you can't just drink the Kool-Aid of the vertical that you're in.
yeah. Yeah. And in it's it's that immediate gratification, the leads, right? It's that mind shift of, can we stop talking about like we do? It's this gaping hole that sort of has opened up between the impression to the meeting booked. But we need leads. Do you? You don't need leads. You need meetings booked, right? Which leads to revenue. And there's this huge chasm in the middle. And obviously, it would be lovely to get the lead to then nurture them ever so thoughtfully with all of our email marketing that isn't totally annoying and walks the line ever so thoughtfully to make you not unsubscribe, although you probably really want to unsubscribe, but you just delete it instead, right? And so at the end of the day, it's like that thoughtful awareness. We're here to help. Here's how we can help. I just wrote ads today actually for ourselves. It was a really weird meta thing that sort of happened. I was like, this is weird. I'm writing ads for our own agency. And at the end of the day, I was just like, how can I help? Like, I don't want to put noise out into the world. And as much as I love Dolly and all of their great new imagery, it's so fun. I also don't want the images to not talk about like the import, like what I'm trying to say. It's got to match, right? The messaging's got to match the image. And I really sat down and thought like, well, what problems are my audience facing and how do we help? And I was like, we need to give. I need to give something here. Like, what is that? And so then I was like, okay, be kind, rewind. I'm not just going to create an ad for the sake of it. I also have to create a white paper and I got to create the landing page that's going to capture the white paper. And I want to make sure that like they can download it, but if they don't want to, they don't have to. At the end of the day, they get the thing. I need you to get the thing to figure out how to go build a thoughtful SEO keyword strategy to meet your audience where they are. Like, at the end of the day, like that's what needs to happen. And so, yeah, I think, but and is that measurable? Hopefully. Would I love for you to give me your email address out of the kindness of your heart because you want this thing and you think it's valuable? Sure. But it's my job to make sure you can do your job better. And sometimes that means not capturing your email address because I just want to make sure you can keep doing your job and doing it to the best of your ability with the resources you don't have available. So let me just be helpful here. And and at the end of the day, I'm going to measure that meeting booked. And I'll ask you at that meeting, how'd you learn about us? And maybe you'll say you downloaded the thing. Maybe you'll say you saw our ad on LinkedIn. Maybe you'll say you've been on my podcast. Um, I don't know, but I know I got to create the surround to say I'm here if you need me, and you'll come through your own way. And that's hard. That's hard to sell internally. It's really hard to sell internally. It's hard to sell to clients. But we need leads. Do you? Or you need pipeline meetings booked.
And it's so hard because it requires faith in the process.
So much faith.
People are not built to have
Scissors.
faith in the process. They are not built to have faith that a seed, like a literal seed, will grow into a plant. They need to check it. They need to water it. They need to poke at it.
Oh, but then you overwater and you overpoke at it, then dies.
And then it turns into a self-fulfilling prophecy. But and the faith that the where we can draw that faith, I'm this is certainly not a marketing sermon, but if it was, here's what I would remind you. I would remind you to think about all the times in your own life where you gained some knowledge from an online resource. And because it happened early in your career, 10 years later, you're still citing that resource. And maybe you went back for updated info, I hope.
I would hope
But
so.
I would hope. But at the same time, that brand is has changed the way that you approach the problem and you think of that brand. So that when you come back to it or someone asks you like, hey, or maybe you hire someone underneath you and you want to like check their understanding, or you give them some kind of onboarding work to make sure that they're not completely lost to the wild. You still pump up that brand. And so the legacy of real value is long term, and it's not just singular in that one impression and the lifetime of that asset. And that's somewhere where we might feel ourselves, but if you ask me to put that into a marketing strategy and tell an investor about that, I don't know if that's how I would go about explaining things. um, but it gives us some anecdotal evidence to the faith that we're trying to have.
Well, let me ask you this, Leanne. When you think about those brands that helped you 10 years ago, do you really remember the name of the brand or do you remember the name of the people?
It was a brand for me, and
It
I remember
was.
it for me. I drank the Kool-Aid, and they had my email, but I drank the Kool-Aid of a very popular CRM brand that offered a lot of free educational
Yeah.
assets.
We all know which
And
one you're talking about.
we don't need to name names, but I think that if you look at who the big it was a smart move as far as SEO, and actually there was a CRM brand and there was an SEO brand that both did it. And because one of the SEO brands really did a great job with like just free educational resources, I still choose that even though they're just as equal to the other four for the most part in usability.
Mhm.
Um, and so because it turned into a familiar thing, it found its wiggly way into my brain besides just like the information that they were teaching me.
But the proof is
So
in the pudding, right? So imagine that you took what they were saying and you applied it and it worked.
it mostly did. I have had, I would call some objectively good success with the results of my marketing efforts. I have definitely had some failures where I just couldn't figure out what was wrong, but I don't think that that was I don't think that that was in a vacuum.
I mean, that's it, not everything's applicable, right? So you try it, and that's the beauty of marketing and marketing and science, right? You got to make a hypothesis based off of what you're hearing in the universe, and you got to give it a go. And even for what we're saying today, like there's a reason why people still hang their hats on lead gen. Do I think it's going to be the ultimate everything? No, But I think that if you're a long-term if you're an established brand that has a really good MarTech system wired up thoughtfully, and you can really tailor it to your audience and nurture them through the longevity to everything you're saying, then yeah, there is relevancy to thoughtful lead gen. But if you're just expecting to turn ads on to get leads to hand them off to sales,
Good
that
luck.
ship has sailed.
Yeah. I wish you well with that. Go for it. Let's at some point it does bring down the whole industry. But if it's all you got, then that's all you got. And it can be a band-aid. And I think that that's part of it, is that while there's always, what were we saying before we started to record? We were saying that there's some answers for some problems. And
Yeah.
it's not always an answer for every problem, but it's an answer for some. In some cases, lead gen, while you're convincing investors to give the marketing department more money so that we can do these assets and we can pay writers and we can get better designs, or we can get AI to help our email only send to people as frequently as they're willing to read it, things like that, it can be a good band aid. It just can't be the whole strategy because it'll fall apart.
Well, I think that's where that's where companies are really struggling now is they're trying to move off the Band-Aid and they don't know how
Yeah.
because they're so reliant on the lead gen of it all, the MQL of it all. And there has to be a transition between the Band-Aid to building that brand. While you're using that lead gen as a Band-Aid, in parallel, carve out part of your budget and start figuring out how to get your name out there to build that brand and to build that trust so that when you rip that band-aid off, it's got a fallback and it's got your brand. And and I agree, Leanne, with you on there's so many times that a brand has helped me out, but what I remember for me is the people behind that brand that made it possible. The salespeople I called because I had no shit moment, or the customer success person I got on the phone with because the thing wasn't working the way I needed to, or um, those. It's the as much as it's the assets and the good advice, it's also the culture and how you build that brand with the people behind it that fulfill that promise that keep you coming back. And so that's why I asked you that question of like, is it really the brand or is there a human that you can remember as well that sort of like made that experience that much better and that much more I think we always come back to people. Brands are a dime a dozen. It's like easy, like, yeah, this was good, but it's not quite. There's so many times I've switched. Here's a great example. I, as a small business, I started with Gusto as my payroll. They were great at payroll. It's all they did. And they were spectacular at it. They said they could do this. They fulfilled that. If I had a problem, I could easily call a person. The person on the other side knew me, knew what was going on, and knew how to fix it. They had to solve. It was fantastic. And then I started using Zenefits for HR from a healthcare standpoint because that's what Zenefits was great at. And they were for a time. And then Zenefits said they could do payroll. And I was like, great, I could roll over and I could have everything in this one neat little package and have my payroll and my healthcare and it all taken care of. No, 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 no. Like Zenefits was really great at the benefit side of it for so long until they weren't. They were not great at payroll and all the states and all the different nuggets and all the different taxes and all the different codes. No. And so I've gone back to Gusto and Gusto now offers healthcare. So I took healthcare right on over to them because I know that when I have a problem, I can get on the phone with a person. Like Zenefits put me through a rigmarole to try and answer my questions as automatically as possible before getting on the phone with a person. Like I want a human to talk to, solve a problem. And so I think as much as we're like tied to the brand, it's the people behind that brand that make us pull us in, pull us back and make it happen. And so that's why I asked you about like is it the brand and or the people.
And that's a great point because when you look at the less positive outcome side of it, there are plenty of times where the people have been the cause for detraction and churn. And when I think of like website hosting companies,
Mm.
I
Such a good
can say that there was this one brand that was like really popular and had a ton of affiliates. And so I followed, a gaggle of marketing influencers for small business and I saw this brand all over the place. Like, okay, fine. Can't hurt. Micro agencies. So I don't have that many people. It's not a big deal. Until it was. And I spent hours on the phone trying to get a straight answer. And I couldn't get it. And it was hard and it cost me time, money, and effort and a lot of frustration. And so I refuse. And now that I have more people where I'm like, oh, yeah, you need a domain, you need a host, you need this, go to this place. I'm like, because here's why. Because I had a tiny problem or there was some sort of error. And not only did they fix it, but they were cool and they were friendly.
Yeah.
It's just the speed to answer and the delight that it
Delight.
it's the delight that needs to exist.
Yes. Yes, the people are what bring us back. It's that human element. I talked about these ads that I wrote today, and there wasn't a human element to them, right? And so I needed it to feel like you were talking to me. And like I know what you're going through because I've talked to 150 of you on the podcast. I know what you're going through, right? Our Even though it's an ad, it has to feel like it's one to one. It has to feel like I'm talking to you and I know what you're going through because I talked to 150 of you and I heard it. I heard you're short on resources. I heard you need pipeline. I heard that your lead gen is drying up. I can tell you why. Here's an
Yeah.
asset to tell you why so you can go fix it with or without me. Right? Like that's where we need to get to. And I feel like we're losing that sense of humanness to everything we're doing because we're using AI to fill the hole in the wrong way, or we're trying to scale for the sake of it and going after the numbers game versus like looking at the real people that we as I know we're not sales. I know we're not one to one. That's really hard for marketers to do. And we still need to remember there's a person on the other side of that we're pissing off with our endless, over frequent newsletters and ads,
Yeah.
and we need to meet
It's
them where they are.
gotta meet them where they are. And I think that that's a really great idea and concept to pull in was about sales. And sometimes the best way to get good at marketing is either in my mind there's like two ways to get really really good. One, to have 150 conversations, to have those one-to-one interactions. And you know who has those one-to-one interactions the most? Your sales team, your customer success team. And
Mhm.
so those people make great marketers and they deserve all the credibility of having that first primary research knowledge, primary source knowledge, and they tell it to us and we're the secondary source. But when we're creating something and when sales says, "No, that's not going to work," instead of marketing trying to shove it down their throat internally, we really probably should say like, "Oh, why don't you think it would work? Why
Yeah.
don't you think another white paper is going to help you get appointments? Tell me more." It's that curiosity.
I think that is really the rift between marketing and sales of us all thinking we know better than the other.
Yeah.
Marketing knows how to market, sales knows how to sales, and we got to trust that the people talking to the customer probably know better than we do. And if we're, and to be fair, like as marketing, I'm not saying we shouldn't pick up the phone. I had a great conversation with Danny Wolf 2 years ago. She called it 2 years ago and said, as marketers, pick up the phone, talk to your customers, understand their problems, right? She's been saying it forever. And we could certainly do that. Not everybody can do that because of the way the company is structured and the way their sales teams and their customer success is. But that doesn't mean we can't figure it out by working through our sales and customer success, listening on calls, asking to join, whatever the case may be, and figuring out what works within our organization. But the end goal has to be that we are hearing in one way or another from our customers, and then using that information to create better marketing to help our customers make thoughtful decisions. And the answer isn't always going to be our brand, which is hard, but they got to do what's right for them. And we got to make sure that we're holding true to the problem that we solve and the way that we solve it. And sometimes the no is just as good as the yes.
Yeah. I mean, I like clear, informed no's. I love it, right? I would rather have you save my time, energy, and resources if you're a bad fit. Like, if you don't think this is going to work and this is going to be a nightmare for us both, you're going to hurt my retention rates. You're going to mess up my like attention to my other customers because I'm going to have to hold your hand over everything. And then you're going to be pissed off because it's not working the way that you think you needed it to work. And it's okay for it to not be the right fit. It's okay. It's not always a judgment thing. It's just a list of pros and cons. And if it's the right puzzle piece, and not having any sort of like moral or ethical judgment about whether or not it's a good fit really helps you improve it for when it is a good fit. If you can stand out with what is a good fit, that's the game. That's what you're trying to do.
Well, I think it's important about it is not just taking it as a known and hanging your head and accepting it for what is. I think it's important to understand why,
Yeah.
right? So when you get a bunch of no's, you take the collection of those and say, okay, why did I get a bunch of no's? Okay, they were all hung up on price. Okay, they're hung up on price. Then it's not because I'm too expensive. It's because I did not do a good job of selling my differentiator. What is my differentiator? And let me look at my competitors and what are their differentiators and why them versus me? And when is it best to choose me over them? And getting that message crystal clear versus feeling like I got to drop my price and I got to negotiate and I got to give the farm away, right? No, you got to figure out why. And you got to go down that rabbit hole of asking that question over and over again to understand those no's. It's not necessarily accepting those no's or being like, okay, they just said no, I'm going to move on. But if you're getting a bunch of them, it's taking a minute to say, okay, let's look at the data and let's figure out what this means and how we need to clarify our messaging.
Yeah.
Comes back to brand.
Yeah, I mean, I love the example of expensive because you said it perfectly, is that if something is too expensive, that means you didn't demonstrate the value. It's not a price argument, it's a value argument because people will find money or price or hold on to it for someday if they can see the true value of it. And while there are always, like bootstrap startups that only have $5 to their name and they can't afford it yet, but they can still be like, we want this, we're in, and put it into a roadmap for the future. So there's no, and then there's not yet. The clear no's
Mhm.
are the ones where, and I think that this is something that I took for granted in our conversation is that I operate in a way such that if there is a no or there is an end in the prospect sales process, is that attribute. I have almost like a list of like check boxes. Why did they say no? Is one of them. Was it the wrong time, wrong fit, missing features, missing services, missing, what was it that was missing? And the onboarding and offboarding process of not just clients, but like the nurture sequence, but then the off sequence of a prospect is something that you might want to consider doing if you're listening to this podcast.
Such a good point. What are you going to leave them with? We just did this. And so every year we get together, MKG Marketing, our agency gets together once a year because we're a remote company. We've been remote since way before COVID, but in person is important. And so once a year we all come together and we do deep work. And the deep work this year was one of our values is the MKG standard. So as you grow as a company, no matter who you are, what you're doing, as you grow as a company, your standards dilute because people have different ways of doing things, and that's okay. At the end of the day, you want to make sure the deliverable, the thing you're giving to the client, the expectations that they've come to understand of what you provide doesn't change. How you get there might change, but the thing at the end and the quality of what you're giving doesn't. And so with a new team, I wanted to redefine how we get, like, what the standard is and how we get there. And in doing so, it was really important deep work because it allowed us to really sit in the seat of our client to say, well, what are they expecting of us? And what are those intentions that we need to set? And I lost my train of thought because I was trying to get back to your question. And I know that this ties back to it. Can you restate? We're going to restate your question. I'm sorry, you got to edit. I was trying to so avoid that.
No, it's okay. I Now that we said that we're going to edit it, I will be much better about remembering to edit it. So, we were talking about how the offboarding process and different things that are intrinsic to your workflow,
Yes.
your processes are ways for you to capture information
Yes.
and information that's valuable in clarifying your
Offboarding.
yeah.
Yes. So go back to your original question because it's brilliant. And we're going to start here. At MKG Marketing, every year we get together because we're a remote agency. We've been since before COVID. And so once a year we come together and we do deep work. And this year was all about defining our standard as a company. But in defining that standard, right, as you grow, you dilute your not necessarily the end goal, the deliverable, but how you get there. And sometimes the quality goes with it. And so we want to make sure that doesn't happen. But as a new team, it's been 10 years since we defined that goal. We have new teams. We wanted to reestablish what the standard is of what clients can expect of us and how we get there. And part of the customer journey, I mapped it out. I laid out a huge piece of paper end to end, and I said, customer starts with us. Here's our kickoff call. Everybody's a kickoff call. It's the very first step. And we said, is it? And we took like 4 steps back. We're like, actually, it starts here and then build up to the kickoff call. And then we talked about renewals. And we said, okay, what happens at the very end of a whole year of working together? What does the renewals look like? And then we said, well, what happens if you don't renew? And so we laid out the whole customer journey end to end, onboarding, offboarding, renewals. And I made the team, but I don't know if they love me or hate me for this, but I always make them do presentations. Normally I have them like create the presentation before we even get to the city and then we present them. I didn't let that happen. I said, we're going to now create presentations. You have 30 minutes. Congratulations. You're going to open up Canva because you're all going to figure out what that magic is. And I want you to create a presentation around a star moment, something they'll always remember. It can be at any part in this journey, but just a moment for the client of where we leave them with something they'll always remember. And we had everything from telling a joke. Like one of my favorite stories is one of our clients is a Taylor Swift diehard. Like they woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning to listen to the Dead Poets Department album before work started. And they like carved out time for that. And so our employee asked them at the end of the call. Normally, one of our employees asks, "Our hearts and minds satisfied?" And instead, another one of our employees jumped in and said, "Oh, wait, no, I have the best question. Is there any bad blood?" Right? right? That's a moment that client will always remember because we know that they love Taylor Swift and we just tied one of our moments back to that. And so that's a star moment. And part of the star moments is the offboarding process, right? How do you leave them with, hey, this didn't work out? And that's okay. But maybe you'll come back to us and that's okay too. And how do we leave them with something they'll always remember, whether it's sending them an MKG water bottle, because they're the best water bottles ever. They're awesome, to making sure it's just really smooth, right? That there is no bad blood. And we want to make sure that they have their data and we don't have access to it, and that they have all their files, and that they have a report that really encapsulates the work we've done together, and that that's a smooth offboarding process so that you never know where people are going to go. They're not going to stay at that brand forever. They're going to go somewhere. They're going to remember this experience, these offboarding experience they had, to know that the onboarding experience is going to be just as good, if not better. So it comes back to the people. It comes back to the experiences they have, and people aren't going to be at the same companies forever. So how we leave them through the marketing we create is going to not just stay with them for that one brand. It comes back to people, it comes back to brand every time.
Yeah. And I mean, selfishly, sometimes you should just do a good job because it feels good to do a good job.
I mean, you would think so.
I I understand that corners get cut and everyone's definition of a good job differs. But if there is a book that I want everyone to drink the Kool-Aid from, it is called The Power of Professionalism by Bill Wursma. Stand-up guy. Whole point of the book, if I'm going to put it into like 2 or 3 sentences, is it does not matter what industry you're in, what job you do, whatever it is that your profession is, do it professionally. And you will be leaps and bounds better off, more respected, more successful, and just feel better about your work by being
Mhm.
professional.
And actually, when we defined the MKG standard, one of the things we added that we hadn't had in there before was what it meant to be professional. In a remote setting, no less, right? That's hard. What does it mean to be professional? Well, you're on camera. Okay, well, what does it mean to be on camera and be professional? Your space is clear, your desk is clean, you're not distracted, right? We're setting the standard that it's really helpful to be on camera because then we can read cues, right? But if we're all off camera and then we're distracted and we're not like really half listening, is that really professional? Probably not, right?
I I like to be thoughtfully on camera when I'm on camera, but for most of my work week, I have a loud face that can be distracting to others. And so I keep my camera off for many meetings because that is what helps me to be professional, especially when dealing with vendors. That way I'm not making a like face or, like I
That's helpful for us. We need those
internally
cues.
internally the way that this is a whole tangent that I love that we're going on. The culture of the team is what makes or breaks this, right? If you have psychological safety where disagreement and those cues are met with respect, are met with consideration, are met with uplifting, thoughtful
Sure.
dialogues, that's one thing. But I've been on a call with a vendor from a very large United States based streaming agency. And the vendor man, account manager, told me to smile more.
Oh,
And
no, that's
so,
not okay.
so there are times where the body language cues can be helpful, but there are other times where the other person on the other side of the camera is not equipped to have that level implicit dialogue, body language dialogue. So it all depends, and it
It
just
does.
it all depends. It's back to that famous marketing thing. It depends.
It does depend, but I think that's so key. The psychological safety of it all is so important. And in building trust as a brand back to your customer, you have to create that. One of our part of our values, we have people first is our number one value. And it used to be very internal of like when me and my business partner started the company, it was very much about taking care of our team and remembering that they're not cogs in a machine. And we need to make sure they have safety, belonging, and purpose in order to fulfill their job in a really intentional way. And it started off as that then expanded to our clients, teaching our team to extend that to our clients of like, how do we remember that the person on the other side is a person who needs to feel safe in the work that we do, and that they have a sense of belonging within our team as much as we do with theirs, and the purpose of what they're trying to create for their brand is our purpose as well. Like that now extends beyond that to their customers, right? How do we create safety, belonging, and purpose for within the brand that extends to their customer so their customer feels that way, right? And so I thank you for level setting here, Leanne, because I think it's so important. I get so caught up in that expectation because it's just what we naturally do as a company, but that doesn't mean everybody has that, which so hurts my heart in like 101 ways because it's like everything we're trying to navigate and disrupt, but I forget that it's still something we have to disrupt, and that sucks, but it is what it is. And
But
I agree that you have to the level of professionalism you bring has to be within the boundaries of what you define of your comfort based off of your own psychological safety. It's important.
yeah, and it's okay to call boundaries. I think that
100%.
there's definitely some organizations where being on camera is more of a power move. It's more of a micromanagement. It's more of a power dynamic struggle. And in contrast to your company, where it's used as a facilitator of relationships. And that's, if you really kind of zoom back out, and we're going to bring this back to the topic of marketing, is marketing is facilitating relationships, and how that plays out within a team, within a client, within extended to their clients. That is the goal, is that the facilitation internally turns externally, turns beyond. And I think that that's where the really good stuff happens.
We're in a people business.
Yeah, we gotta have the people.
Gotta have the
Um,
people.
so I mean, I we know that we could sit here talking all day about marketing in the world, but I want to ask you kind of two more questions about the future, right? So the first one is about the future. Where is marketing going versus where should it go? Are they the same? Do you think that there's some like differences? Go for it.
Where is marketing going versus where it should go?
And maybe this is our whole topic for the day, is that it's getting away from lead gen, and it should.
Yeah. I think AI is going to play a role into that where I could see an unfortunate world where we go back to trying to figure out how to cobble a bunch of tools together to do our job for us in a really automated way that has the intention of building brand and doing marketing, but gets away from the people element and disconnects us from that. And I worry about that because AI isn't here to do our jobs for us. It's here to facilitate us to do our jobs better and faster. It's like a calculator. I always bring it back to a calculator analogy. I don't know whether I got this from my husband or something I listened to, but it's he compares AI to a parrot, right? Like A- AI basically just spits out whatever we put into it. It just reframes it in some. It's really good at looking at like a ton of information and data and distilling it down just as a parrot. It has no idea of context. It's not having a real conversation with us. It's just pattern recognition. Similar to a calculator, right? So there was a time where people used to do math on a chalkboard by hand, long form, where we fill up the whole chalkboard because that's just how they had to do math back then. And then calculators came along, supercomputers came along and allowed us to do math a lot faster and get to the answer a lot faster. And that's really what AI is there for, is not to do the writing for us, but to help us figure out what we should write about and why we should write about it, and from the context of the client and the customer, um, and be more well informed in that writing. But it shouldn't necessarily do the writing for us. And I worry that we're going to live in a world of saturation because we took the easy way out and we tried to play the game of the algorithms versus trying to play to our customers and meet them where they are. Um, so yeah, I think we're gonna see I think we're gonna see it head that way, and then in 5, 10 years time, we'll once again be back where we are right now, talking about it's all about people and it's all about brand, and it doesn't matter which shortcuts you try and take, you're gonna end up back here. So you might as well take the time now to build an intentional brand to solve a thoughtful problem for your customers and build up in a way that helps them make that decision versus just trying to pump out a lot of information for the sake of, you know, because you can with AI to play the game with the algorithms.
Yeah. I mean, I I can write perfectly bland content myself, I think was a comment that I wrote on your post one time. I was like, I don't need to put this and take 5 steps to chat GPT to write some very mediocre, almost vanilla, the most diluted thing in the
All
world.
I own.
I can do that, I don't need assistance for that. But I do look forward to the places where one analogy that came to mind was like the voice automated phone call systems where yeah, there might be a person's voice recording telling you what number to push, does not make you less frustrated. Does not make the sting of being stuck in a phone dial pad loop, does not take it away just because someone bright and cheerful and kind sounding told me what number to press. Does not make it more humanized. And so adding sprinkles of humanity into an otherwise automated system can be detrimental.
Yeah. No, I mean, I have this stupid phone call happening to me every 5 minutes right now, and I can't block it because the phone number changes. And so I finally called them back and they were asking me all these questions. I was like, I'm not answering your questions. Don't ask me how old I am. No, thank you to that. I just want you to stop calling me. Stop calling me. What's the secret combination? Do I need to say stop calling me? Do I need to say unsubscribe? Do I need to like tell me what to say and I will say it because I need you to stop because you're clearly automated and I'm over it. Right? I think those are the worlds I worry about. The text messaging, the more. We don't need more. We need thoughtful.
Yeah.
We need authentic. We need human to human, right? AI is cannot replace us as the marketing and salespeople. It needs to help us facilitate to do our jobs better, potentially faster, but not in a way that creates more noise. Can we all
Yeah.
just think about how we like to be sold to? Like, do you like cold calling? Do you like automation? Do you like when you try and buy something and you can't, and then that remarketing ad follows you around to remind you of the thing you can't buy? No, right? Like, let's put ourselves in those shoes for a second and remember how we like to be sold, how we like to make buying decisions, and it is not any of that. It's
No.
not.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's and I mean, the I was like, do I need to say it? I need to say it because, cybersecurity, right? You should not always respond or answer to all of these bots calling because just writing back stop can ping your location. It can do a lot of things. So the safety of it, of the overuse of automation muddies the water and really infests it. That's pretty strong language for bots, but it does.
It
And
does.
it makes people that are either end of, usage or knowledge or contemporary like spam tactics, it makes them really at risk. And that's where marketers, when I say things like you need to step back with like automated texting or this or that, is that for every time a business has an automation, is it creates an opportunity for bad actors to,
Mimic. Yeah.
yeah, to get in, to take advantage of. So that's food for thought, is like, do you really need to add text messaging to your business? And how does that play out if it were to go wrong? Not all AI is for good. But on that note, last question, it's the big one. What is a question someone should ask you but they don't? And this could be like someone asks you about XYZ and they really need to get back, like way back and do ABC. Like it's like maybe they're asking about like Pinterest marketing and they just don't even have content on their website. It's just like way too far. Or another type of way that people answer this is about like them as a person, and there's something that they're very passionate about that they just want to like talk more about. So, what is a question someone should ask you but they don't?
I would say instead of saying you need more leads, ask do we? Do we need more leads? I had a great conversation with a potential prospect even just this week. And he was like, I don't care how you get there. I don't care what it looks like. I just want to know the leads are coming in. And I was like, why? Well, because I know that if I get 300 leads, I'm going to get like 5 good contacts. And I was like, ooh, that's a really big delta. But what if I only bring you 15 leads and one of them is the same as having brought you 5 because the quality is so much better? Then am I then not doing my job because I didn't hit my lead quota? Like, we need to change how we think about marketing. Heidi Ramick was on my show. She's been in all of my VIP meetings. We're going to do a webinar with her because she's got all the data. She's got a whole PowerPoint presentation. And I've been saying it for a long time, and somebody actually put it into numbers. And I was like, there it is. There it is. And it's that marketing's an investment. And you're looking at by the time you start marketing, whether it's an SEO or whether it's advertising, PR, whatever it might be, you're looking at 6 if you're lucky, but really 18 months before somebody buys from you. It's an investment, and the investment will pay off, and there's definitely iteration that happens. You don't just start spending and then wait and see. But it's the long game. Marketing is the long game. The minute sales gets a hot lead, they should be able to go and close, and you should be looking at why that's taking so long. And you need to tighten that up. Tighten the sales cycle up, right? And marketing should be figuring out if that is taking too long, then they're not ready. So how do we not nurture that properly? And how can we do our job better? But it really is like, stop telling me you need more leads and ask me why you need so many.
Yeah.
Because you shouldn't need that big of a delta. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's I I saw a small business owner that was running ads, and I didn't feel that their ads spoke to the population that they told me they were targeting. And then they told me, "But it's driving traffic and I just got my first conversion." And I was like, "But your traffic's not converting. They're seeing this ad and then they're getting to your website and they're seeing that this is not that. This is not what they thought they were going to get. This is not what they were in search of. And it's not converting. So, what does it matter how many impressions or how many clicks that ad got if once it gets to your website, it's abysmal?" it's a ghost town. And I think that people fixate, to your point, on the wrong questions.
Yeah, I think that there's a delicate balancing act with that too, right? Because it's no longer see it, like it, buy it,
Yeah.
right? So the impression isn't going to lead to the click, which isn't going to lead to the conversion. Those days are,
Well,
whether they
and to
ever
be fair,
existed, I don't know. But I
this
think
was an
that to your
e-commerce.
point though, well, that's a horse of a different color.
Yeah, it was an
But if you're
e-commerce. So,
B2B,
if you're
like the
B2B,
distinction, that's not gonna, that impression does matter. And the time on site and people spending time and clicking through and the content they're looking at and what they're it's sticky, right? So it's that stickiness that matters, and how that retargeting path to that nurturing path to then that conversion point is it takes longer than, yeah. Be, e-commerce is yeah, it should be see it like it, buy it.
yeah.
Maybe it's
I
a little
mean,
bit, but
but
it's the right metrics. What are the metrics you're looking at and why?
what's the engagement rate is the one that I think you just called out that, you know, matters
It does matter.
for
It's,
either one, e-commerce
yeah,
or B2B. And there's
they have any
ways,
metrics,
yeah,
what they're
there's ways.
called. They're not.
I mean, 0 is 0. You need more than 0, but you need more than vanity. Well, aside from my non sequitur example, that was quite different.
Sorry.
It's my fault. I'm like, yeah, here's this completely left field example. If someone wants to get a hold of you, how can they find you?
So there's our website, mkgmarketinginc.com. We can also do mkg.marketing. That URL works too. And then I personally am on LinkedIn. I live and breathe it. So you can just DM me and we'll hang out. And I'd love to hear from you. Yeah, let's talk marketing. Marketing and science. It is a blend.
It
I'm
is
here for it.
awesome. And then, just in case you're only listening and not watching, Carrie's name is spelled Kerry. Last name is Guard. And so you can just find her. She's awesome. You'll be happy you did. This is Leanne. And if you want to get a hold of me, please do so at info@markigy.com, or also on LinkedIn, where I spend copious amounts of time that I can't quite understand why. No, I'm kidding. It's called addiction, guys. And so we'll get there. You know, thank you again. And